but I mean, we have human life, we have the family, we have taking care of the poor, the destitute, the widow, the orphan. All of these different pieces are involved within this formula, and it breaks my heart to see them separated because I don't think they need to be counterclaimed by one party or the other. How, though, do we do this framework and we resist the outrage culture that we have to develop a biblically informed, socially responsible, political moral ecology?
How do we determine who has the right political positions? And how do we push outside of the boundaries of Christianity those who don't have the right political positions? And a big, at the center of my book is to say that that is asking the wrong questions. That is a misunderstanding both of Christianity and of politics. C.S. Lewis writes this essay, Meditations on the Third Commandment. And in this essay, he's considering the creation of a Christian political party in Britain, like at the time and to this day, there were across Europe. And he says, the problem is, let's say that you found the party on what you take to be the most unassailable Christian position that you possibly could. Hypothetically, let's say abolition of slavery. Well, right, there are even problems there. And the problem there is a political party doesn't just have a position against slavery generally. They need to pursue an actual policy instrument or set of policy instruments, an actual instrumental way to advance that value. Well, anyone who knows the history of abolitionist movement knows that abolitionists disagreed with one another about the best way to pursue abolition. And so right off the bat, even though you've chosen to base your party on what you take to be the most unassailable Christian position, you have to choose a specific path. Well, what does the fact that you chose a specific path to pursue abolition say about the other Christian abolitionists who disagree with the path you took? So that's problem one. Problem two is this: when you're operating as a political party, when you're operating in politics, you can't just talk about the issue that that is your reason for existence. You're going to be taking votes on property taxes and zoning regulations. And so you've created this mantle of authority. We're the Christian political party, but you end up having to use that authority on a whole range of issues that you may or may not think the Christian faith offers the kind of specific, direct guidance on those issues that you do abolition, but you've created that mantle. And so what C.S. Lewis says is, look, the temptation when you combine faith and politics is to proclaim God hath said when he hasn't spoken. It's to use God's name in vain. We need to understand that when we step into politics, we are at best translators of God's will, not stenographers. Politics is the realm, is the area of the prudential, of the penultimate. And anyone who has paid any attention to the history of public policy, and I'm not talking about, you could look 100 years back, 200 years. I'm saying read the newspaper for 3 months, and you will find that the history of public policy is a history of unintended consequences, of people who were even certain about the rightness of their intentions, coming to learn that the instruments they chose to advance those intentions didn't have the effect they intended, sometimes even had the exact opposite effect of what they were intending. Or they come to learn, hey, I thought for sure that God's will was that I intended this thing, but now I understand that I was supposed to intend this, and there were reasons why that intention was not the right way to move forward. So there's a real danger when, as Christians, we take the authority of the gospel and of these ultimate principles, which are transcendent. The dignity of the human person is a transcendent, ultimate principle that we could stand on. But when we equate those transcendent ultimate principles to a particular policy instrument, when we say that to love your neighbor equals this policy agenda, we are not only setting ourselves, not only are we using God's name in vain, we are also setting ourselves up to undermine the authority that we have to preach the gospel. This is a problem like pastors run into, which is you need to address politics and the social, but I advise really significant caution. The more specific you get in terms of policy debates and current issues, proclaiming your views from the pulpit on Sunday morning, because you're leaving your congregations, your members of your congregation really in two places. They could either believe, take your proclamation of the gospel really seriously and say, well, pastors' political views must carry that same authority, or they say, well, I don't think the pastor's political views are right, so maybe he's wrong about, or maybe they're wrong about the gospel too. I think a lot of people look at our politics and see this is one of the most conflict-ridden, complicated set of decisions that one can make. I don't know everything that's going to be coming down the pike politically. People elected George W. Bush expecting a domestic presidency. 9/11 happens. All of a sudden, he's commander in chief, having to. Really? That doesn't make you think, maybe I didn't think in 2000 strongly enough about foreign policy credentials. Like, it's just a wild thing to say. Not an ounce of moral energy. I have to contribute an ounce of moral energy when I drive to work in the morning. Like we
When I
just, but here's the thing. What the easiest thing to do when you step into politics is to just say, if you're trying to appeal in the midst of a campaign, and we're going to hear a lot of this in the coming months, if you are a real Christian, you'll vote for my candidate. If you're not a real Christian, sure, yeah, you'll probably vote for the other guy. And we just need to recognize that for the moral and religious bullying that it is. And we need to actually tell people, where do you have the authority to say that? Where do you get that from? C.S. Lewis, in the opening of Mere Christianity, says Christianity does not offer a particular political program. Scripture is to be applied by Christians in their time and place. And what accountability do you have for that? What accountability do you have for Neil Gorsuch writing the decision in Bostock that has set the precedent for the Title IX ruling that you are now so fired up about, which I think is a good thing to be concerned about. But if supporting the right side, if this is the measure of faithfulness, having the right political answers, then shouldn't there be doesn't there have to be, by that logic, some accountability for getting it wrong?
Of course, as you said before, these are complicated questions and answers as we try to navigate the minefield of politics. And talking with Russell Moore, who has suffered politically, to being, in some respect, he leaves his denomination behind, the SBC. Some say good riddance to that, and others are saying, I applaud him for being faithful to his convictions and refusing to be a part of that type of, if it was a variety of issues, of course, his reactions to many different things.
Yeah.
And of course, he is one of the endorsers of your book. But in his book, he mentions what happened in Ireland among Catholics when it came to the abuse by Roman Catholic priests, and how people rallied because they said, hey, this didn't happen, this couldn't happen. And then to the point where children were even having to apologize to the priest that molested them. And then, of course, it did come out, and then people went the other way.
Yeah.
I brought that up with Al Mohler,
Yeah.
and he did not like that. He said, "I'm tired of this argument." It wasn't just, in be fairness to him, it wasn't just to Mohler.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was citing Weiner, and who are we
Yeah. Yeah.
becoming in the middle of all this? And he
Yeah.
said, if you have the opportunity, he goes, "I'm tired of this argument. If you have the opportunity to do good, you do it." And in his mind, that
Yeah.
meant at the very foundation of human life, you do it.
Yeah.
How do you respond to that at the very basics of humanity? We're talking about the flourishing of society. We're talking about the dignity of the person. But if a person can't even be born, how do we help people to see, again, to unravel the complexity, to see this in a greater moral framework? Because while on one end you would say the end justifies the means, and then you'd say, wait a minute, what are we becoming in the middle of this? What are the ramifications? While we do want to see life, we do want to be able to help other people. And what are we becoming in the middle of all this when we know, and again, this is Weiner's argument, that when we have someone who is more of a Democrat, abortions actually go down. And when we have Republicans, abortions go up. And again, I don't know the stats on that. You probably know it better than I do,
Yeah.
but I believe that's true.